Hi, this is Joe Chambers. Welcome to Musicians Hall of Fame Backstage. Today's clip is part 2 of an interview we did with Ray Williams. In this part, Ray continues the story of accepting a job with Liberty Records, where he placed the ad for talent, which ended up bringing Bernie Taupin to him, and him putting Bernie with Elton and getting Elton's career kick-started. He takes Elton's career up to the point to where he was booked at the Troubadour in L.A. in that ride that they took to get him to that point. Hope you enjoy it. If you do, be sure to hit like, subscribe, and the notification bell so you don't miss any of our new content. Once again, part 2 with Ray Williams. Welcome back to Musicians Hall of Fame Backstage with Ray Williams. So when we cut away, we're talking about you got your job at A&R with Liberty Records, put an ad in the paper for artists, writers, whatever. What happened?
I got thousands of letters and phone calls and big sacks of mail.
And what year was this?
1960. The ad went in, I think it was June the 17th, 1967, day after my birthday. I was now 20. And so it was amazing.
No kidding.
Yeah. And this guy wrote in called Reg Dwight.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And he came in, and he wrote me a letter. I said, come in and meet me. And he came in, and I said, sit down. He sat down, and he started to tell me his story, because he was in bluesology, and I'd seen bluesology at the Marquee Club. And he started to tell me how he wanted to do more recording on his own, because Long John Baldry, the leader of the band, wouldn't let him sing more songs. Mm-hmm. And he even had a name. I said, what's that? He said, Elton. And he said, yeah, Elton, and that's named after Elton Dean in the band, and John, which was Long John Baldry. Of course, in Rocket Man, he looks over a picture of John Lennon, and it comes up as Elton John.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so I said, let's go and play the piano. So he went and played the piano, and one of the songs he did was He'll Have to Go by Jim Reeves. Mm-hmm. Because he didn't write songs, he couldn't write, but he was a great pianist, he had a great voice. So I said, well, let's go and make some demos. So we went to Denmark Street, which was the Tin Pan Alley of London, mm-hmm. like the Brill building in New York.
Right.
And we went to this old studio, which had loads of egg boxes hanging on the ceiling.
Right.
To keep the sound in good shape. I'd managed to get something like, I think it was like £15 an hour. So we had 2 hours, and we had £5 more to pay for some mixing. But of course, everything was on 4-track in those days. Mm-hmm. So we went in and did about 3 tracks and bounced everything backwards and forwards and overdubbed stuff. And I took them back to my bosses, Bob Reisdorf and the publisher Alan Keane for Metric, mm-hmm. and they both turned it down. So I said to them, look, they didn't like it, but I want to help you. I'm going to help you anyway. Now I've got 2 writers that I'm helping that I got a piano in the flat the flat I was telling you about earlier,
right.
Just off Berkeley Square. And I said, I'm going to introduce you to them, and just to help you get along. Anyway, he started doing some things with them. And then this guy sent me a letter called Bernie Taupin. And he said, essentially, I'm a poet, but I think my lyrics could be set to music. And I read all the lyrics, and I wrote him a letter back saying, Dear Bernie, really interested in lyrics. I'll try and help you. Why don't you come down to London and see me? And that was it.
Now, do you still have any of those lyrics?
Good God, I wish I did.
Okay.
I gave them to Elton.
Okay.
Back in the day, you know, and so in the film they show this random thing of me holding a load of letters and me throwing one to it. It was a bit, no, that's bullshit. But, by the way, Rocky About It is a great piece of entertainment. I mean, it's a great entertainment with great songs, but it is, as it's advertised, a true fantasy.
Yeah.
But it's great fun.
Yeah.
But the reality of it was, I gave Elton the lyrics to see if he could do something, because I was mindful that Bernie couldn't do anything. And a little bell went in my head, well, he can't write lyrics.
Right.
And it started to work. And then Bernie and Elton met, and we then went to Graham Nash, who was a friend. We knew the Hollies quite well. And we were going to start a little publishing company called Naraki. So the Hollies had a company called Gralto, Graham, Alan and Tony. So we thought we'd call it Nicky, Ray and Kirk. Those were the other two writers. And we did a deal with Graham. Graham was published by Dick James.
Right.
And suddenly Elton was making demos with Bernie at Dick James. And the short story of that is Dick just went and signed them up behind Graham and all of us. And that's how they became staff writers.
Yeah.
And then that took, people think that happened in 2 seconds. I mean, it took a couple of years.
Really?
Well, they kept writing. They kept writing and writing. And then one day...
so they didn't just get together one day and just write your song or whatever? Yeah.
Well, no, but they started to write by, you know, he'd send the lyrics from Lincoln. And then Bernie came down and stayed at Elton's place, his mum's place. Now they were writing. We all kept in touch with each other. And they started to get better and better. And then one day, there was a guy called Steve Brown that worked at Dick James, who was a musician. And he helped very much in the demos. But the guy doing the engineering at Dick James's office was a guy called Caleb Quay. And Caleb Quay is an incredible musician. And eventually he had a band called Hookfoot. But he played on every Elton album up to, I think, about 1975. Mm-hmm. Or every album. And then he played with Hall & Oates. And he was enjoying life in the rock and roll business. And he played on it. He was just an incredible guitarist. I remember Eric Clapton on the Dave Letterman show said one night, where Dave Letterman said, well, how does it feel to be the best guitarist in the world? And Eric said, well, actually, the best guitarist in the world is Caleb Quay. You know. Mm. But Caleb was the engineer in the little studio. And so he helped in the development of musically. And Steve Brown, I believe, helped as well, in my opinion. And then one day Elton came back and said, would I be his personal manager? And so that's when I started to, you know, help on mm-hmm. Skyline Pigeon and the Empty Sky album. And then we had the Elton John album. And then, of course, we did an enormous amount of work in Europe trying to break it. And we did a lot of stuff. You know, there was a lot of groundwork. And then, of course, with Russ Regan and, you know, Uni in America, they did an amazing job. And Rick FRIO, I don't even know these names. But they did an amazing job and started promoting that album in America. And I started to look for a gig for them to do. And I remember there was, so NEMS was our agency in the UK. They had a relationship with Chartwell Artists, which was owned by Gerry Raferty. industry legend, as a promoter, whatever. And he had two agents working for him. One was Howard Rose, and then there was Jerry Heller. And I remember we were looking for a gig, and Howard Rose rings up and says, I got a gig. I think it was the Bottom Line in New York, $50. I thought, God, we're not going to get over there for $50. And then Jerry Heller rang. He said, I've got a gig at the Troubadour, $175. We weren't going to get very much. So we ended up at $200 and something, and then we went to Dick. We went to Dick because basically Dick had funded me becoming a manager, mm-hmm. and I had an office at Dick James, mm-hmm. and I had a little bit of money every week, and so we worked from there. So I went to Dick, all of us went to Dick and asked him for the money to go to America, and he stumped up the money for us to go to America. And so we all got on a plane, arrived in LA. We were greeted by a London bus, with a famous old picture of us standing out. The last thing we wanted was a London bus to meet us at LA after a 13-hour plane journey. And there was this wonderful guy called Norman Winter, famous PR guy that had set it all up. And we went to LA in this London bus, ended up on Sunset, stayed at the Hyatt House, I think it was. Mm-hmm. And then that's where the Troubadour was. And that was we started to get ready to do that gig.
What happened at the Troubadour?
Well, we had a few days off, and before it, and there was some funny moments, that happened before that, and Elton became a little scared of everything. And
what do you mean?
Well, in Rocket Man, you see him locked in a bathroom, not refusing to do the gig. There was that situation, not even locked in the bathroom, but a big kerfuffle between us. He was not going to do the gig because he was nervous. But we were 23 years old by this time.
Right.
We're young, and all of us, our whole group, were friends. We were great friends, and it's sort of weird, really. It wasn't like today. Have the big manager and the big agent, but we were a traveling group of people that worked together. Yeah. And it suddenly became very serious, and so it was very nervy to begin with.
It became very serious because
we realized that
you started to take off.
It hadn't yet taken over yet, but that first night that we did at the Troubadour, it really was amazing. It was just unbelievable because we were all nervous. Actually, we all became nervous. I don't get nervous a lot. We were all very nervous by the time he walked on the stage, and Neil Diamond introduced him. Dave Rosner, who worked for Dick James, was in LA and was a great friend of him, and so Neil came and introduced Elton John from England. And the first thing Elton saw were a lot of famous people. Leon Russell was the one that got him because that was his idol. Yeah. And there were all sorts of people there. There's so many people that claim to be there. The Troubadour wasn't big enough. You know what I mean? Right. I think they probably went over the 4 or 5 days we were there. Yeah. And count that as the first night. Yeah. But it was just sensational. It really was. I remember when we started, it does start off very gently. We're all worrying, what's the reaction? And I think people were confused at looking at this little guy with his Mr. Freedom bib on, you know, his outfit. Mr. Freedom was a big star in fashion back in the UK. And just a bass player, Dee Murray, and Nigel on the drums. Piano, drums, bass. But they made such an amazing sound. And Elton's ability on the piano was just sensational.
Right.
Anyway, together they were brilliant. They were absolutely brilliant. And
do you remember what song they opened with?
Oh God, I can't. Was it Burn Down? I think it was Burn Down the Mission. I can't remember actually. I do have notes of it, but I haven't got any notes of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was essentially the first. You know, Skyline Pigeon was played in the set. There is a set list, which we can check out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, there were a couple of songs from the Tumbleweed Connection album, but mainly it was the Black Album, the first album, which people in America consider the first album. In fact, it was the second album. And last year was the 50th anniversary of all those albums and the live album, and this year was the anniversary of I think Friends, which was a film soundtrack. There was a friend of mine, his dad was making a film, and I'd given him an Elton John album to listen to, and he thought it was really cool. And he got his dad to get Elton and Bernie to write the songs for it, and there's a great song that comes out of that called Friends.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was my period as manager of Elton John, and then it ended.
When did it end?
Oh, it ended after. I mean, the fact is, my God, it's quite a big story. But the thing is, we were 23.
Yeah.
Now, you imagine being in LA, and people like Dick James, and I guess in a way I was out of my league. But in terms of being a manager that was needed, I never planned to be a manager.
Yeah.
Although I did manage the Idol race as well, and got them started. So that was I was really happy to have done that, because I've seen what it's become. And it's quite amazing.
What happened right after the Troubadour? What was there immediate change in attitudes and jobs and?
No, it was when we went back to England, and there was a lot of. I mean, look, I had. They needed to have. Dick James wanted to have, and Elton wanted to have, a big manager. Right. And that's how it all started.
So
I'd done my job.
Did it happen quickly, or was it still gradual?
No, it was sort of but there was no point in carrying on if there was discontent. Both of it. I mean.
No, I mean his success. After that, was it a?
Oh well, after that, obviously everything was beginning to. Their writing was just getting better and better and better, and they had the confidence.
Yeah. To
write and come up with ideas, and of course, Elton was a junkie when it came to knowing about different styles of music. Right. His hobby was going around record stores, looking at records and flicking them and playing them, and knowing all genres of music. That's why when you listen to his music over the years, there's many genres. Yeah. You think of songs like Your Song, which I still think is an amazing song, and Bernie writing that, he was still 19 or 20. I mean, he was still.
And it's true that they don't stay in the same room when
they don't. They just Elton, Bernie writes the lyrics, sends them off to Elton. Elton comes up with the tunes.
So what did you do after?
Well, after that, I went to look for another band, and came across this new band that was being formed called Stealler's Wheel. And in that band was Gerry Raferty.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just doing a solo album, finishing a solo album with Transatlantic. A great song on it called Can I Have My Money Back? And he had another song on there called Mary Skeffington, which actually are great songs. And we started the process of the Stealler's Wheel band, and there was different members at the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they were still pulling it together. And I was doing it with a friend of mine called Robert Wace, and Robert had managed the Kinks. So we knew each other from when I worked with the Kinks.
Mm-hmm.
And we all got on, and we decided that we'd work together. So I went out and found Stealler's Wheel. And
did they write Stuck in the Middle while you were managing?
Oh, I remember when it was written. Yeah. Yeah. It was written. It was a restaurant, I think, called Del Aratusa in Kings Road. And it was written during the process of finding a producer. And we'd gone along, and Jerry Moss was there, and Robert and I were there, and we had some potential producers. And that's where it came. Jerry was very cynical on stuff. Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right,
right.
Where I am, stuck in the middle of the air.
Right.
Because he didn't like any of the people that A&M had tried to come up with.
Well, how did y'all land on that being a single? I mean,
Stuck in the Middle. Well, first of all, it was we got LEIBER and STOLLER, Jerry Leiber and Mike Stoller,
mm-hmm.
to produce them. We met them through Freddie Beanstalk, you know, the publisher
mm-hmm.
in New York, and it was the first band that Jerry and Mike didn't write any songs for, because they wrote, well, you know what they wrote.
Yeah.
You know, Spanish Harlem, Treat Me Nice, Jailhouse Rock,
Hound Dog.
Hound Dog. I mean, just amazing, and they were brilliant. And that song was inspired by that particular moment. But there were lots of really good songs at that time, and we recorded at Apple, the Beatles
mm-hmm.
studio, where they did Get Back on the roof. And
did you know any of the Beatles?
I'd met John Lennon and Paul McCartney. At that time, I didn't know Ringo or George, because there was a threat. But I met John when I was with Brian Somerville. Jack Good, who was an English guy who had a TV series in America, didn't he, in California? Was it the Jack Good Show or something? Or it was a period of shindig.
Yeah.
That period.
Right.
And he came to England and he did a Beatles special. They did it at Wembley, and Brian had said, let's go, and we've been invited down there, let's go down there. And I remember they were recording like 8 days a week. That was that period.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being introduced to John Lennon, and he said, do you want a fag? Because I didn't smoke at that time, until the Mamas and Papas.
Yeah.
And I liked him a lot.
Yeah.
And I'd met them. We used to go to Epstein's house when they had, I mean, he was a sort of shy, retiring guy. And I remember when they brought the acetate back from Abbey Road of Penny Lane and Strawberry Fields. And I remember we were all there, we were listening to this. I mean, it was quite amazing. So they were there, and I met them then. Yeah. I met them all in the end, but But
you know, you're killing me telling me all this stuff, right? Because
well,
I mean, I'm like,
it's weird.
It is weird, man. This is crazy. You have definitely lived the life.
Well, I've tried to.
Yeah.
And actually, Elton and Bernie wrote, when my first wife was pregnant, that was the time that they, that I was managing him. And they came to my house one day and they said, we've got a name. We've got a name for a girl. If you have a girl, if your wife has a girl, will you call her this name? I said, what's the name? And he said, Amorina.
Yeah.
A-M-O-R-W-E-N-A. And that's my oldest daughter, is Amorina.
Yeah. How cool is that?
That's very cool.
Yeah.
And last year was her 50th birthday. That's weird. I can't think I got somebody 50. Bloody hell.
But you started when you were an embryo.
Oh, yeah, I was an embryo. I started before that.
Yeah.
Yes. And Elton did a really sweet thing. He got on his piano and he sent her a happy birthday thing. It was very sweet.
Oh, yeah.
So we all are chums again. You know, we met up a few times, I mean, since then. You know, one was when, sadly, Dee passed away in '92, and we came to Opryland, and we did a memorial for Dee here. And of course, one of the songs he sang was "He'll Have to Go."
Yeah.
And then, in fact, he did that again the other week on Howard Stern show, and he sang it live on the, yeah. So, and he was really nice. We met up again at Charlotte, at the Hornet Stadium there when he did the Yellow Brick Road show before COVID, and it was wonderful. We all met. You know, we you know, the circle of life was, you know, we're all mates, and
right.
It's lovely. Yeah.
That's the way it should be.
Yeah, exactly.
He introduced you, didn't he?
He did. He'd introduced the band, and he went and sat down, and he got up. He said, "Tonight," he said, "You know what?" He said, "I've known Bernie for over 50 years, and the man responsible is here tonight." And it was very emotional. And he said, "I'll dedicate this song to you." And it was "Don't Let the Sun Go Down."
Yeah.
That was beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very nice. We had a really nice chat, and yeah, and we've done a lot of things online in the last year for EltonJohn.com.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So, man, thanks so much for.
It's a pleasure.
For coming in. This has been.
Yeah.
Way too much fun for me.
I do apologize. Yeah.
Oh, don't apologize. Yeah. Before we cut, what are you doing now?
Well, for 20 years after all that, I became a music supervisor when it was not trendy. I did a lot of I did about 70 films, including things like The Last Emperor, which did pretty well.
All right.
Saving Grace, lots of these films, and I became ill in 2001, and I said, I'm not doing this anymore. But I thought I'd start a new company to license music online. So we have a company called crumbsmusic.com. And I'm also helping a new artist, a guy called John NORRIS. He's a country singer that we found in Sanford. And he's been recording here in Nashville, and I think he's going to be a star. He's got a wonderful voice, and he's 21, and he's got a voice that sounds like he's 31. I mean, it's great.
Well, if you say he's going to be a star, I'm going to bet on you.
Okay, well, that's cool.
Thanks again so much for doing this.
I really enjoyed this very much. Thank you.
Not as much as me. Thank you so much. See us next time on Musicians Hall of Fame Backstage.